And we are live and we are back. Let's go. I'm Cory, your host, one half of the Quarter Full of Fat podcast. And I'm back like I never left with another installment of Wealth Wednesdays here on the Quarter Full of Fat podcast. We discuss health and wealth, finance and fitness, and everything in between. And we want to make sure you save more and save less and keep making better your best. Yes, yes. However, when my co-host Jordan went on paternity leave, I started these Wealth Wednesdays where we get straight to the finance information. And I know y'all see today's topic. We're going to get into inflation numbers, or maybe the lack thereof for inflation numbers. But before we get started, look, I'm already sloppy and messing up. Forgot to have the whatever it is. Make sure that like button, share and subscribe. Shout out to the YouTube algorithm. Leave those rating reviews on the podcast platforms as well. My information as well as my co-host information, Jordan. Contact information is in the show notes on YouTube. I'm at sideline_Cory, and Jordan is at StopStallingJ on the social media platforms out there. Now, what I am going to say is I was going to do the student loans. Here we go. Student loans. It's time to deal with the situation. We're supposed to get the hearing sometime this week. We had off yesterday, well, technically 2 days ago, but it's Tuesday for Juneteenth, and we're supposed to get the hearing, sometime this week. So, either Wednesday, Thursday, or Friday, one of these days from the Supreme Court. And I was going to do this white paper on the data as far as what happened when the moratorium started for student loans in 2020, and what happened to, or what people did with that money for people who stopped making those payments and then people who continued making those payments. However, the article was like it's like a PDF, and the sharing the screen, it was terrible quality. So I'm just gonna read and skim through it on my own. I've already kind of done that. But in short, what happened is that people who stopped making their minimum payments, even though it went to $0 for everybody who had the federal student loans, the people who no longer had to make those payments, that they went into more debt. So instead of using that minimum payment that they got back, either continue to put it towards their student loans, paying down other debt, building savings, or investing, they went and took that payment and got more debt. And the people who continue to make that payment, even if it was $0, or who still had to make the payment because it was technically a private loan and then qualify for the forbearance that's still going on, they did not have an increase in debt overall, right? Obviously, nothing's perfect. But in short, that was going to be the whole white paper. It's like 37 pages, so it was going to be a pretty lengthy episode. But again, like I said, the share screen, it was terrible quality, so you guys wouldn't have been able to see anything. So what's the point of showing it? Might as well read it myself and then just have the information in my head for when we do talk about these student loans, because we waiting to see what exactly is going to be the ruling. I would say it's probably like 70, 30, 80, 20 in favor, well, not in favor of those who don't want the forgiveness to occur. So everyone's thinking that the Supreme Court is going to rule against it. We'll see what's going to happen. You guys will have an episode as soon as that information is out so we can discuss it. I've already said this before, start making your student loan payments. You are going to have to make your payments. If you have more than $10,000, you didn't get a Pell Grant, or more than $20,000 and you did get a Pell Grant. It's that simple. They're not forgiving everything anyways, unless you have under those amounts for those particular criteria. So you might as well start making your student loan payment. I did see that the interest, I was saying that was going to start back up when the hearing occurs /June 30th or July 1st, whichever happens. Looks like the interest is not going to start back up until August 30th or 31st, something like that. We'll see. Again, like I said, the payments themselves, like when will the payments start back up? That's looking like it's still probably going to be in the October timeframe. Again, every loan servicer is going to be different. You got to wait to see exactly when they tell you you're going to have your payments start back up. Now, let's be very clear. For those of you who still have a substantial amount and you've been having this 0% and you've been paying down your student loans, you might want to look into refinancing your student loans now if you can get a significantly lower interest rate out there. Some of you close to 10% or more than 10%. As far as your student loan interest rate, it's that about that time it started refinancing. It's going to be, everybody's student loans, 40 plus million people, student loans are about to turn back on here in the next few months or so. Ooh, excuse me. And so you want to, you don't want there to be a delay in your process, even if you get approved for some type of refinancing. Look, you want to go ahead and get to that front of the line because everybody's going to be dragging their feet with it. For those of you who are in that situation where you no longer you didn't continue to make your student loan payment during this forbearance over the last little 3 years, and you have had an increase in debt, right, or whatever it is, your expenses increase, whatever it is, you didn't use that payment to your benefit from a savings and investing or debt pay down standpoint, and you still have that new debt payment you went and got, it's time. I wouldn't call it judgment day, but it's time to do. Real life is on the way, right? I would say, at least in America, this is the last hat to drop to get us to quote unquote pre-pandemic life, quote unquote. Once these student loans turn back on, we know final form. It will be the economy's final form. So please be prepared for that and be on the lookout for that. Now, before I get started, remember, for entertainment purposes only, don't sue me, sue your mama, myself, neither Jordan are fitness or financial professionals. Anything you hear on here is for entertainment purposes only, and you need to do your own research. It's tired. This is why I'm not supposed to record too late, and my brain's already turned off. But I'm still gonna push through it, and it's still gonna be a fire episode. Now, we're gonna get to these inflation numbers. I've been talking about it. Inflation is still high, right? What does it mean when inflation is high? People just hate how much stuff is cost, right? Even when prices, quote unquote, decrease. If the stuff is normally $1 and it's been $3 and it went back, $2.50, it's like, that's better, but sort of like with gas, right? You see gas increase, but it doesn't go back to what it was previously. So here we go. We're going to share this, and we're going to CNBC, old faithful. It's not really old faithful. It's just current faithful. All right, let me share my screen. If I can figure out how to share my screen. I still haven't got a new mouse. For those of you who know about the mouse situation, when will I get a new mouse? Don't worry about that. Just listen to the information. All right, here we go. Inflation rose at a 4% annual rate in May of this year, the lowest in 2 years. Oh, snap. This is published last week. Yeah, June 13th. This is about another. I think I'm on a slightly hot streak of the names of these authors. This is by Jeff Cox. Shout out to Jeffrey. I don't know if his name's Jeffrey. It says Jeff, but we got a normal name. And before I get started, again, for inflation, whenever you see the inflation numbers, it's year to year. So again, how I was saying 4% annual rate increase, when they say inflation is up or down 4%, that's for that month/quarter compared to the previous year. So when inflation was up 4% in May, that's not saying compared to last month, as in this technically be April in this case, because we don't have the June numbers yet. So remember, it's a year-to-year comparison as you see the annual rate. So this is the lowest in 2 years, which means 2021 inflation was not crazy high in 2021. So interesting to see what this data is talking about. All right, here we go. Consumer price index increased by 0.1% for the month and 4% from a year ago. Latter being the lowest in about 2 years. It's 0.1%, not the latter. And again, this is saying consumer price index just by 1% for the month. Okay, so if they're not explicitly letting you know that is, month to month, then assume usually that's going to be a year-to-year type of comparison. Okay, excluding food and energy. So not counting the grocery store and gas, the two variable things in your necessities for people's most, I guess, and energy might include utilities as well. So shout out to Jeff. Sometimes some of these, okay, so excluding food and energy, core CPI, that's consumer price index, rose 0.4% and 5.3% respectively. Here's the issue. No, please include food and energy, because these are the necessities in our budget that are variable, right? Your variable necessities. So your grocery bill, now you're eating out, but your grocery bill, your utilities, no gas, water, electricity, whatever you have to pay. And then when I say gas, if you have gas for your home, and then, vehicle gas, it's like, those are people's usually biggest expenses, probably second and third behind their housing for as far as renting your mortgage. Then you got food, your grocery bill, and then you got your utilities. Oh my goodness. All the numbers were in line. Okay, what's this estimate? So shout out to the economists. They had a good month. All right, following the release, markets priced in a nearly 100% chance that the Federal Reserve will not raise interest rates this week. Okay, shout out to the Federal Reserve. Inflation rate cooled in May to its lowest annual rate in 2 years, likely taking pressure off the Fed to raise interest rates. Labor Department reported. CPI, which, measures in a multitude of goods and services. All right, okay, we read that. Okay, so it was last year, or excuse me, in April was 4.9%, and it was 4%. So like I said, see how it's letting us know that it was 4.9% in April. All right, that 12-month increase was the smallest since March 2021, when inflation was just beginning to rise. Okay, so they're saying March 2021 is when inflation was starting. The inflation that we're dealing with right now, to what would be the highest, and yes, highest since the 80s. Shout out to President Carter. All right, here we go. Excluding volatile, all right, okay, excluding food and energy prices, the price wasn't as optimistic. Core inflation was 0.4% on the month and was still up 5.3% from a year ago, indicating that while price pressures have eased somewhat, consumers are still under fire. So they're saying, even though, like I said, stuff was used to be $1, now it's $3. Now they're saying, it's $2.50, where it's like, I mean, that's better, but our consumers in a quote unquote better position. Like, by definition, $2.50 is less than $3, but not really. Okay, all right, price index, right, year-over-year percentage through May of 2023. Let's see. So I love us. Okay, this is all items. So all items is 4%, it looks like. Or no, wait. Yeah, all items is 4%, and then food and energy, without food and energy, is 2.3. So we're seeing the high here in the summertime. We're dealing right now, June, July timeframe. Okay, no shared area indicates recession. I'm not sure exactly what that means. All right, all of those numbers were exactly in line with Dow Jones consensus. A 3.6% slide in energy prices helped keep the CPI gain in check for the month. Food prices rose just 0.2%. I think I can attest to that. Grocery bill has not been increasing, quote unquote, even though I go grocery shopping every week, so it varies. But I'm not. But I just bumped it up because the stuff keeps going up. So it is what it is for groceries. However, okay, 0.6% increase in shelter prices. I guess it's assuming that's rent. I'm not sure if they're meaning mortgage with that. Was the biggest contributor to the increase for all items or headline CPI reading. Housing related costs make up about 1/3 of index is weighting. I see shelter prices, then it's housing related costs. I'm not sure what does that include utilities for the house. Elsewhere, I use vehicle prices. I wish it said how long used vehicle prices have been increasing and what like the used vehicle prices decrease, right? I mean, they decrease. Used vehicle prices increased 4.4%. Okay, same as in April, while transportation services were up 0.8%. It is insane that used vehicle prices are still increasing, but that's still due to the shortage of materials for new vehicles. It's that simple. It's going to be some time till we recover from that globally, because vehicles is a global thing. I mean, everyone's economy is global, but getting those parts from other parts of the country, other parts of the world, that's crazy. Still 4.4%. And then on top of that, used vehicle prices are increasing, and then on top of that, the Fed is continuing to, well, they're saying hopefully this month they're not increasing the interest rates, but the interest rates are increasing, so it costs more money to get a loan to get some money, and then on top of that, the vehicles cost more. And then it is about to be a mess when these student loans kick back on. Used vehicles, usually the interest rate is higher than on a new vehicle. It is about to be terrible. Please, y'all, get y'all student loans paid off. I know y'all why y'all want forgiveness, but there's one thing. If I could just be like, y'all, please pay off your student loans. That's usually the biggest thing I harp on. All the other debt is sort of like, we'll figure it out. But student loans, the only way to figure it out is to pay it off aggressively. There's no other. We have not found any other solution. And then here I'm talking about student loans, but we're not talking about inflation. And then on top of that, for those people who has their student loans forgiven, thanks since December of last year, December 2022, they could possibly have to deal with that forgiveness that they received being undone. It's like, my goodness, man, I can't wait till the student loan stuff drop. It's the longest episode I've done, so I think everybody knows who watches and listens to this how I feel about student loans. All right, market show, right? Little reaction to the release. Stock market has been. Let me see what the year to date is on S&P. Should be. I don't know what it's been doing the last week, but it should be around. I guess it's 10% or so. So the S&P 500 is year to date. How can y'all see? I can see that. Okay, for the podcast listeners, we're looking at whoo, S&P is up almost 14.76% year to date, almost 15%. Man, y'all got to continue and shout out the dollar cost averaging, boy, because I've been seeing my account. I'm like, dang, this is jumping. I thought, I mean, I know last year was bad, and rarely, not rarely, but even if you're in a recession, when the stock market is rarely just terrible like it was in 2022, 2 consecutive years. Let me see if I can find that, because this inflation, all this stuff is linked together. I had a here we go, historical returns. Is there going to be a chart? Boom, we got a chart. So last year, what can y'all see? Let me zoom in a little bit more. Y'all know we're gonna keep you educated on as much as we can over here to show how everything. You think Jordan and I would be going off, off sidetrack. All this stuff is important. So for those of y'all who thought, and I got to start looking at all the analysis I ran on different data points. But for those of y'all who think like, man, last year was crazy, and the down was 20%, 19.44%. We're up almost 15% this year. And on top of that, let's just look and see how often are we facing large. Okay, come on, I'm trying to get rid of these ads. Let's just say, look at what we're doing. I think it's 15 to 20%. See, when I'm tired, I can't remember all the stuff that's in my head. Let's see the last time we had back-to-back negative years. Shout out to 2008, down negative 38.49. So 2000, so the dot-com bubble. So even when we talk about, Jesus Christ, look at all these ads. Excuse me, Jesus. But even when we talk about, 07, 08, 09, the housing crisis, it was just 2008 now. Again, almost 40%. But it was just that year. The next year was up 23%. And it went up every year. I mean, you can count, 2015 at a negative 0.73, so 70% of 1%, but it went up every year until essentially 2018. Then you had and then the pandemic year, pandemic year 2020, 2021, it was still up. Then you hit 2022. So really, since 2008, we've only had really 2 down years in the stock market. I mean, that's crazy. And then you got the dot-com bubble, which is the last time we've had consecutive years, which would be 3 in a row, 2000, 2001, 2002, at 10%, 13%, and then 23% respectively, negative. Then 1994 was down 1.54%. So it's like, okay. 1990, 6.65%. Okay. 81. All right. 9.73. So even when, this is one thing, history repeats itself. And that's why most, if not, no, I can't say all, but most fiduciaries, financial advisors, they're going to tell you, pick the broad, usually an S&P 500, so you can get that return. Because even in the 80s, when interest rates and inflation was crazy high, right? When they're talking about, remember now, 40 years ago for us millennials, that's 90s babies. 40 years ago now is the 80s. I know we used to think 40 years ago, 50 years ago, be more 60s or 70s. No, now 40 years ago is the 80s, and 30 years ago is the 90s, because we turned 30. Most of us are already 30, but for millennials, but even in the 80s, when we talk about inflation was at the highest before this current time period, as far as 2022, 2023, only 1 year in the 80s. Only 1981 did the stock market have a negative return. And only 2 years for 84 and 87, 1.4 and then 2% respectively, was it less than 10%. Every year in the this is insanity. When you actually look at the day, like all the different talk, all the stuff that goes on within the world. When was Cuban Missile Crisis should be the 60s, right? 60s and 70s. Yeah, okay. I don't know why I thought. No, my bad. That's when we had the people that got captured when Carter was president. I was like, why am I thinking the Cuban Missile Crisis was in the 60s? The 80s. Regardless, though, when you look at it, so the last time the stock market has had back-to-back years was of negative returns was 2000. That was 2000, 2001, 2002, 3 consecutive years. Then before that, you go back to 1973 and 74. My goodness, we're coming right out of Jim Crow here. Okay, then the next time, so the last 3 time periods in which the stock market has had 2 back-to-back years of a negative return was 2000, 2002, was it 1973 and 74, and then 1946, 47, and 48. That's right off. That's right off of World War II. So a high percentage chance that even when the stock market, even when a recessionary period from a year standpoint, the next year is probably going to go up. I mean, you see, and these returns are crazy. All that to say, to get back to the actual article, because it was talking about it in reference to markets. So I continue to invest. Continue to invest because the stock market is going to go up. Remember, when I say stock market, S&P 500. Not investing advice. Do your own research. Seek out a financial professional, fiduciary. But still, go and look at the S&P 500 numbers on your own and see what the returns are. Regardless, though, markets show little reaction to the release despite its expected prominence. Right? Okay, decision. Fed. Okay, apparently the Federal Reserve will make this week. That would have been last week, actually. Let me see if I can find the Federal Reserve rate increase. Did the Fed? Okay, yeah, saying it didn't. No, they paused it for this month. Cool. All right. Hey, stock market futures. Our futures were slightly positive. The Treasury yields fell sharply. Pricing did shift. All right, notably in Fed's markets, traders. All right, 93% chance the Fed will not raise the benchmark rates. Okay, again, we just talked about that. They're saying encouraging trend in consumer prices will provide the Fed some leeway to keep rates unchanged this month. And if the trend continues, the Fed will not likely hike for the rest of the year. If the trend continues, so this is if the trend continues on a month by month basis, okay, cool. That's something to look out though. So as I'm bringing this up, for those of you who might have got that 6% or that 7% plus interest rate on your house, not to refinance, again, not financial advice, but this is one of the indicators that you'll see. We might not see, it didn't say they're going to lower, but Fed might not continue to increase interest rates for the rest of the year if we continue to see this decline, or should I say a lack of increase in inflation on a month-to-month basis. And this was said by Jeffrey Roach, chief economist at LPL Financial. So something to be looking at over the next coming months to see what inflation is doing. All right, still the tame, our CPI. Reading, okay, good news for workers. Average hourly earnings adjusted for inflation, rose 0.3% on the month. My goodness, 30% of 1%. So you got 30 cents on your dollar. You got 30 cents. You got 30% of a penny. Whatever. All right, that's from Bureau of Labor Statistics. All right, except for leaves on an annual basis, real earnings are up 0.2% after running negative for much of the inflation surge that began about 2 years ago. So at least we're seeing, a slight turn now. Here's the question, right? For people who do technical analysis, but it's a dead cat bounce where bounce is going down and bounces up, and you think we're recovering, then it goes back down again, and even steeper than previously. Again, the student loans have not turned back on yet. What's my prediction? I don't like making predictions, but I do like making predictions. When the student loans turn back on, I don't care what the numbers are, it's going to be a mess. I don't care what gets reported. It's going to be a mess when student loans get turned back on. It's going to be a mess just when the student loans get turned back on, and how they're going to, all that processing, the systems, all that type of stuff. That's going to be crazy. It's going to be crazy because remember, next year, we vote for president next year. We're probably, I don't know when exactly they'll truly start the campaigning next year, but we're probably less than 12 months out. We vote in November. Y'all gonna listen to this. It's gonna be almost. July is next week. All right, and I'm fast forwarding a year, right? So we vote for a president. What is that? It's 20 months. 16 months. Less than a year and a half. Yeah, 6 months. Yeah, we vote. Stuff is always going on, but it's just things you have to be paying attention to from a market standpoint, because all these things affect your pocket. So we'll see what inflation is going to look like. If the student loan, if the Supreme Court doesn't, if they go against the Biden administration and they don't approve this forgiveness, now the Biden administration, one of the big things is from a political standpoint is the student loan forgiveness. And so it hasn't been said if Biden's going to run again or not, but he would be an incumbent, obviously, if he does. What, is that going to be something again? Like, okay, I'm gonna get it past this time. It's going to be interesting. Then you got the student loan starting back up. And even though inflation is sort of tapering, apparently, for at least for this month, from April to May, no Fed increase on the rates for June, people have not been making those minimum payments. And as I said, again, didn't get to see the article. But actually, let me pull the article up, at least so y'all can have, I can tell y'all it. But again, people who didn't make their student loan payment after the forbearance, they got more debt. And people who continue to, they in short have less debt. So when these student loan payments turn back on, people got to make these minimum payments. I mean, what do you think is going to happen? I mean, simple logic. If people are in a worse financial situation without a minimum payment, you about to add that back to their budget. I mean, it's simple math. 1 + 1 is equaling struggle here. All right, Consumer Price Index report featured a growing discrepancy between the core and headline numbers. All right, all items. The all items index usually runs ahead of the X food and energy measure because that's excluding food and energy, but hasn't been the case lately. All right, here we go. Year-over-year discrepancy between two measures stems from gas prices that were surging right last year this time. Okay, prices would exceed $5. All right, talking about last year. Gasoline prices are down almost 20% over the past year. Yes. Then food prices, however, food prices are still up. Yes, food is up. Yes, food has not gone down like gas. 6.7% since last year. Eggs have fallen almost 14%. How much do people use eggs? I know eggs is one of the markers, but I mean, it's only two of us, but my wife and I, we don't even get eggs every month. And we eat. So I don't even know if eggs is a good marker. Because I mean, how much are people buying eggs? Do y'all really be making omelets like all day? I mean, like whatever. All right, and now slightly negative. All right, eggs are slightly negative on 12 months basis. All right, after surge in previous months. And then shelter prices have risen 8%. And transportation are up 10.2%. Airline fares, right? Oh, airline fares have been on decline 13.4%. Okay, year over year. All right, so we're seeing food is still up, but then we got eggs are falling. So that's it. Again, interest rates on pause. Fed hasn't increased them, and then we got inflation, 4% annual rate in May. This is the lowest of 2 years. So again, stock market is up almost 15% since the beginning of the year to date. We got inflation looking like it's at least maybe not declining, but not increasing anymore. And that's to say, that's what the Fed is looking at to see if they're going to continue to raise interest rates. They put a pause on them this month. Word is, if we continue to see inflation at least not continue to rise, the Fed is going to continue to pause on interest rate hikes for the rest of the year. That's going to impact interest rates from a loan standpoint, right? Mortgages, right? Seeing the housing issue, things like that. So it's going to be interesting to see as we go through this summer what is going on with inflation. But we are seeing, as we saw with the travel prices, right? People traveling most during the summer, even though I know a lot of people. I mean, most people didn't travel for like the last 3 years or so, right, during the pandemic. So there's a lot of pent up demand. So it's going to be interesting to see how that is all going to play out from an economic standpoint. But are y'all actually no wait? Yeah, I'm gonna show y'all. Let me show you, and just so y'all can see, so I don't be lying. This is what I on my end. It just looks so blurry, and so it might be better when I actually watch this on YouTube. And if it's a lot better, then maybe I'll end up doing it. But it just looks like I can't even see it when I'm looking at it. Like there's no way y'all can read this. And I'm not about to go through 37 pages of blurry stuff for y'all. So that's it though. But again, like I said, in short, this is saying that people who no longer made their student loan payments during the forbearance, they have more debt, and the people that continue to, they have less debt. Obviously, if you continue to make your payment, your debt's gonna go down if it's 0% interest. I mean, that's how that works. But are y'all locked and loaded? End of the episode. Again, shout out to inflation. Inflation, I would say things are calm. We're in a calm before the storm type of situation with the student loan payments looking like they're going to start back up, and the student loan payments are going to start back up, but looking like the forgiveness is not going to occur, which means it's going to take people longer to get out of debt, right? I mean, 20 million. It's about, I think it's anywhere from, I think 40% or so. So was that 16 million technically, right? 40% of 40 million. I think they said roughly around 40% of people who qualify for the forgiveness were going to have everything forgiven. So all of those people would not have their student loan payment added back into their budget if the forgiveness doesn't go their way. But if it does, if it doesn't go their way, now we have all those people who potentially could have had that truly, right, been able to repurpose that student loan payment. They're not going to be able to now. And now they have that added back into their budget. And then the percentage chances are that they have more debt now, right? And they probably were leaning on the forgiveness occurring on top of that. So they're like, they have more debt and their lifestyle increases. Like, oh yeah, this one will get forgiven. I mean, like, again, y'all banking on the government coming and saving y'all. That is what it is. But again, something to just be mindful of. My guess is that when these student loans do get turned back on, I don't think we're going to see the stock market have a crazy hit, but when we talk about inflation and things like that, that'll be the things to actually look at. Because even though inflation's been going crazy, well, it's technically been tapering down, but we've seen inflation go crazy over the last 18 months or so. The stock market technically only had one bad year. I mean, inflation was crazy low in 2020, and then 2021 technically they said that's when it started. The previous year to 2022, so 2021 stock market still had a great year. So we'll see how that all looks. As my throat's getting dry. We'll see how all this pans out. It's going to be an interesting end of the year. 2023, shout out to Jordan year next year. Rest in peace, Kobe. Right, next year's Kobe year. It's going to be interesting as we close out. I mean, again, shout out to goals. We're halfway through the year. Once June is over, we got another half to go. It's going to be an interesting closeout from an economic standpoint. We see. I keep saying this because it's very important. We vote next year. All that stuff is going to impact everything. So if you're in a point where you're struggling or still, trying to get some momentum, right? You're moving in a forward direction, but you're not making the progress you want to. Always recommend, put your best foot forward. But there's still some other, Jesus. I'm gonna say it anyway because I be listening to the playbacks and be like, dang, I didn't say it, and I can't remember what I was gonna say. I was gonna say there's still gonna be some other big balls to drop. It's not supposed to say big balls to drop. Some other hats to drop. Be some other hats to drop. I mean, you see what's going on with President Trump right now, but again, they're still saying he's still the leader as far as being the nominee for the Republican Party for presidential nominee. But then you got DeSantis from Florida. Like there's a lot of stuff going on, that when you combine it with inflation or lack thereof, interest rates, student loans starting back up, the Supreme Court ruling against it as far as the forgiveness, all that stuff brewing together. And then whatever crazy stuff can happen. Don't wish this, but hurricane season hasn't happened yet for this year, right? We got a lot of stuff that can still make an impact. And this is why we tell y'all to do everything you can to be locked in, focused, consistency, discipline, and just make the sacrifices and cut as much as you can as early as possible. So since Jordan and I have been talking to y'all for over 2 years now, are we 2 years in? Yes, we're over 2 years in. I mean, we kind of been, a lot of y'all probably already been out of debt by now. I mean, it's that simple. But all right, y'all, again, locked and loaded. End of the episode. Make sure that like button is free. Shout out to the YouTube algorithm. Leave those rating reviews on the podcast platform as well. And I forgot to say this. Please leave a comment. I need to say this in the beginning and at the end. But leave a comment. Let us know what you thought about the episode. Let me know. Let us know. Let us know if you have any topics that you want us to discuss. And just let us know that you sitting here watching. And if you want us to talk about anything in particular, change it up, whatever it is, let me know / us know for when we do the Finance Infants episodes, because you're all watching, y'all are listeners, and we want to make sure our content is geared to what y'all actually want to hear and hear us talk about, or any information / education you guys want. Not education, any entertainment. Me tripping up. Any entertainment that you guys want. All right, that's it, y'all. Again, the student loan hearing is supposed to be this week, or sorry, excuse me, the ruling / hearing is going to be this week. if they do actually make a ruling, I will make an episode probably depending on when they do make it. I don't know how long it'll take, for the articles and everything to come out, but I'm probably not going to wait till Wednesday unless they end up doing it on Friday. If they end up doing it on Friday, then I might just end up waiting till Wednesday. But if they do it either today, which would be Wednesday when I listen to this, but it's Tuesday, or Thursday and the article comes out, then I might end up recording on the weekend. But we'll see. And it's that time. It is that time. But all right, y'all. Remember to save more and say less. Keep making better your best. And I'll catch y'all in the next one.